That's not agile, and it will just drive you crazy. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Chatting Transformation, the Change and Transformation podcast that's designed to make your adoption of change and transformation activity that little bit easier. I'm Barry, and I've been in change and transformation now for around about 20 years, and the idea of this podcast is for me to talk to you about the various subjects involved and to pass on my experience, my understandings, my opinions, and the lessons that I've learned to make your journey that little bit easier. And today I'm going to introduce the subject of Agile. Now, Agile is something that I haven't covered up to date. Most of the episodes so far have talked more around the legacy and I'm thinking about the best way to explain it, but the more traditional way of delivering programs and projects and therefore change and transformation. And some people will call it waterfall. Some people will know it as more specific methodologies such as P3M, etc. Today I want to talk about Agile, which is something slightly different. Now, what I want you to think about was, when was the last time you thought about the way you work, the way you undertake your role, and the way the team around you, the team that you're a part of, delivers? And the way that we work is part of our mindset, both our individual mindset, our team mindset, our organisational mindset, and potentially our organisational culture. Agile is actually about creating a new mindset at the team and organisational levels, and to an extent at the individual level. It is about creating an environment where you can ask tough questions about the way that you, the team, the organisation work, and also create an environment where everybody within that team, organisation, etc. is open to continuous improvement in the way things are done. So the mindset is about fostering that openness, that discussion, understanding how things could potentially be done better, and then potentially adopting them and trying them out. Crucially, Agile is not about new project delivery methodology or putting in place a bunch of specific practices or ceremonies or artifacts. It is way much more than that. All of those things do happen under Agile, and there's ones that are designed to help foster that Agile mindset, but they aren't Agile. Agile is that mindset, that thinking about how we do things, thinking about how we can improve things, and having an environment that allows that to be tested, implemented, tested, see what the results are. So if you think about how to create an Agile mindset, first of all, you need to focus on why things are done in a certain way. And you really need to then think about not just how we do things, but why we do things. This is something I try and push in everything I do, to be honest, not just in Agile adoptions, but in every team and organisation I'm involved in that works in a certain way or that does things in a certain way. And it's really important actually for a lot of those legacy or traditional ways of delivering, because if we're going to be asking people to do things in a certain way, we need to understand why they're done so we can explain it, justify it, and help people come on that journey to move to that way of working. But you really need to have a hunger to understand not just on how things are done in a certain way, but why they're done in that certain way. The second thing you've got to be really open to doing to create that Agile mindset is empowering teams to devise the best ways for how that work can be done. So generally the specialist knowledge for doing an activity is held by the people that are doing it. It's not generally held by the managers at the top that are saying, this is the work I want you to do and this is how I want you to do it. As people become more experienced and they become more practiced in what they do, they become the experts. And what Agile talks about is allowing these experts to actually take ownership of understanding how the work can be delivered. Not what the work is, that still gets directed from the organisation, and again, later on in later episodes, we'll talk about methodologies and practices and ceremonies that help to translate that work of what needs to be done. But how it is done, how it is delivered, how the team operates together is something that actually the team can take on. It can be delegated to the team in order to improve things. So that's really the fundamentals of how we're going to create an agile mindset, and we'll get way more into that in future episodes when we start to look at some of the methodologies and some of the practices and some of the ways of working around agile. But what I just wanted to do at the moment was introduce this, and it comes back to, and I really need to labour the point that agile is mindset. It's about changing ultimately the culture of the organisation. And I want you to be aware, if you're considering agile or you're thinking about agile might be the answer to the changes that we need, I want you to be aware of the following. So first of all, when you start to look at agile, and I'm going to introduce some documents and artifacts such as the Agile Manifesto, which I'll talk about in the next couple of episodes. Agile really originated in software development, so some of the terminology and the descriptions used are language that are appropriate to software development. Now, don't want you to be put off by that. Agile can be applied to the vast majority of activities in business or any activities that an organisation undertakes, public sector, not-for-profit sector, all of that kind of thing. There, it can be applied in lots of different ways. So don't be put off by the language. What you need to be able to do is read it, take a step back, think about that, why this says this, not just how it says it, and think about then how that can be applied in your organisation. And it might mean that some of the specific descriptive words or the terminology needs to be changed when you're thinking about your adoption. But fundamentally, the principles behind it are applicable to the vast majority of organisations. The second thing that I labour with Agile is, once you have got that mindset, and that's absolutely critical, when it comes to thinking about how are we going to adopt it, what are the methodologies, what are the practices, what are the artifacts, what are the ceremonies, and all these good things we hear about Agile, it's really a toolbox. And it's a toolbox of things that you can go through, and you can choose what will work best for your organisation. Now, no agile adoption is ever the same. It will be down to your organisational structures, it will be down to your organisation, it will be down to your people, it will be down to your culture, it will be down critically to your leadership. So best to skill yourself by developing a toolbox across all of the various methodologies, ways of working, approaches, all of that good stuff, and then go through it and choose what you think will work best. And use Agile to trial and test it, and let the team present it to the team, think about what they want to do, let them test something. If it works, great, continuously improve it. If it doesn't, move on to something else. But it is a real it's not a one fit way of doing things, and you do need that mindset. Now, two things there to be aware of are what I call plastic agilists. So they are people that will come in and tell you it is just about methodology and it is just about changing the structures of your team, but fundamentally they won't touch your culture, they won't touch your mindset, they won't go anywhere near that. That's not going to make you agile, that's just going to change ways of working in your organisation, and you're going to go through a whole load of disruption for very little benefit, because the benefit doesn't come from delivering projects in a slightly different way. It comes from that mindset of empowering the teams and letting the workers develop the best ways and continuously improving. The second one to be aware of, which is the flip side of that, is what I call the Agile zealots, which are people who are fastidiously obsessed with a specific agile methodology and will drive the adoption of every single detail of that specific agile adoption from day one, and probably try to implement it on day one in your organisation. Not only does that completely take the fun out of going through an agile adoption, and agile adoption can be quite fun because it really is, changing that culture. It actually undermines the mindset change because it just kind of takes the power from the leadership of the organisation that says this is how we're going to do things, and gives it to this zealot party that has arrived that says this is how you're going to do things. Ultimately, the team doesn't get to choose or decide or be involved, so it's not really agile. And also, as I said, it comes back to that tool set where there might be things in that approach that just aren't applicable or are nice to haves versus critical to have. And if you've just been pushed into this one size fits all, this is how it works, do everything written in this manual, it's not going to work. It's going to be as bad, if not worse, as a plastic agilist approach, which is let's just change a few names on a document and do things in a slightly different way, but not change your mindset and culture. The other thing that you need to think about with Agile is it needs to be top to bottom. So there are some approaches where you can go in and maybe change a team and do a bit of a what they call a core versus edge approach, where you create effectively like a new mini organisation that works in this new way, and then gradually people working in the old way look at it and go, that's amazing, let's go over and work there, and you kind of build a new organisation built on the new agile ways of working. Or you can do a thing where you're going and you select a team within the organisation and you change that, and people see that, and then that gradually morphs out into the wider organisation. Fundamentally, though, no approach to Agile is going to work unless the leadership understands Agile, understands the mindset, has adopted that mindset, is driving the cultural change to support the Agile adoption throughout the organisation. If you just change a team and you don't do anything about the levels above it, then what you'll find is that team might slightly improve and work better as a team, but as soon as it starts to interact with the rest of the organisation, the whole thing's going to fall apart because they're going to be working in new ways. Linkages around responsibilities and accountabilities will still exist, but they'll be slightly different, and you're going to have conflict, you're going to have a clash really of ways of working that's going to really undermine the agile development. It's going to stop it in its tracks. So what I would suggest is, before you go anywhere near adopting agile within a certain team or at the grassroots level, start with the leadership. That's incredibly important. You need that. It is so important. They will drive that cultural change and the adoption of that mindset downwards. If you don't do that, it's probably not going to work. So in summary, on this introduction to Agile, I will labour the point again. Agile is and can be a great option for any organisation, but it is about creating a mindset which is open to looking at the way we work, why we work in that way, and looking at how things can continuously be improved. And therefore, that needs to allow the people who are experts in delivering to take charge of how that work is delivered. It is not just replacing program and project delivery methodologies and artifacts. It is born in software, but it can be applied in almost any activity in almost any organisation. Adoption will be very specific to your organisation and will take into account its structure, people, culture, where you're at in the organisational journey, size, all of that kind of thing. So be aware of adopting the practical aspects only. Don't be a plastic agilist. Beware of those trying to implement a very specific approach. Don't be an agile zealot. And remember that Agile is a toolbox to support you on your own bespoke adoption. And crucial to that is adoption at the leadership level. It's critically important if that organisational wide adoption is going to be successful. So that's my very brief introduction to Agile. It's what I tell people whenever they contact me and say, we're thinking about adopting Agile. What's your advice? What's your thoughts on it? What do you think works for us? I hope you've enjoyed that. In the next couple of episodes, I'll delve into some of the critical parts. We'll talk about the Agile Manifesto, the values, the principles, and then for the rest of the week, we'll start to look at the methodologies. But for now, I hope you enjoyed it and have a good start to the week.